Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Complete College webinar on student-centered mathematics and business partnerships at the University of Colorado Boulder. My name is Vanessa Cadle, and I am the Senior Strategy Director for Implementation. And I have had the distinct pleasure to get to know our three panelists today, and we are sincerely thankful for their contribution to our work at CCA for Math Pathways and thinking about the right math at the right time. So thank you so much to Grulke, Laura Kornish, and Shaulis, who will be walking us through the development and implementation and results from their business math course. I just want to throw out some housekeeping. We will be recording this webinar, so if you find it helpful and would like to share it with folks at your institution, I will send out a recording to everyone that is registered after the webinar. You can also find it on our web platform at www.completecollege.org. We are going to be answering questions at the end of the webinar. There's a question and answer button on your screen that you can use at any time. However, I will note that we will answer questions after they get through the content, so stay tuned for the question and answer session at the end. And finally, the chat function will be used as an engaging and interactive part of this webinar, so feel free to locate that and stay tuned for our panelists to use that in the presentation. For now, I will hand it over to the panelists.
Okay, this is Laura Kornish. I'm here in Boulder with Grulke. The two of us are in my office, and Shaulis is in California. So we're spanning all the time zones of the U.S. And I'm thrilled to work with CCA to have this opportunity to tell you about the partnership that the Leeds Business School has had with the CU Math Department to really serve our business students. And I did notice on the list of participants that one of the CU, at least one of the attendees on the webinar is a CU grad, an alum from Leeds. Okay, so this fall marks 5 years that this collaboration. And what I'm going to talk about today, or what the three of us are going to talk about today, is the class that math and business work together to develop as a required class for the business students. So we started the first year in 2014, piloting that academic year with 200 students. The course is now running at full scale. Last academic year, over 1,600 students took it. And today we're going to give you some information about the course, its development, and the ongoing evolution of this course. Okay, so that is me in the middle in my funny math t-shirt. I'm Laura, and I am, as I said, I'm a faculty member in business. I'm in the marketing division at Leeds, and I'm going to let Boo and Dee each introduce themselves.
So, hi, I'm Elizabeth Grulke, although I do go by Boo. I'm over here on the left, as you can see. I currently coordinate all sections of Math 11-12, and I collaborate regularly with Laura on keeping the course up to date, new developments, updating the material to stay current for our students.
Hi there, my name is Dee, and I was part of the team that created this course. I had the pleasure of working with Laura and developing a course that we thought was very relevant and engaging for the students in the Leeds School of Business. And it was a grand pleasure to be a part of that. I'm currently no longer on campus, but I have an opportunity to stay involved with continued expansion and development of the course as needed.
Okay, thank you, Dee. All right. So we've been referring to our class, which bears the number 1112, so we call it Math 11-12. The title of the course is Mathematical Analysis in Business. And this class is different than most math classes that our students have taken before. And that's because it is completely application driven. So, I list some of the applications down there that we use in the course. And so instead of a method-driven class, for example, we'd say in a method-driven class, we might say, we're going to teach you everything you need to know about piecewise linear functions. So instead of coming at it from the mathematical context, we come at it from applications. And so piecewise linear functions, they just naturally arise when you look at the US income tax code, or they naturally arise in the payment plans for cell phones or in volume discounts. So this application-driven orientation rather than method-driven orientation, it forces true integration across 3 competencies. So first of all, recognizing what the relevant math is in some context. Secondly, having the math skills themselves. And third, in this class, we've chosen to use Excel as the problem-solving platform because that is what is used in most businesses when people are working with data and people are doing mathematical problem solving. So that's a sort of the high level and what makes this class distinct. And let me dive a little bit into one of the examples, one of the applications, and that's the one that relates to crowdfunding. Okay, so some of you are probably familiar with crowdfunding. If not, I'll just give you a quick intro. So crowdfunding is the idea that a small business or an artist might want to raise money to get the business venture or the artistic endeavor off the ground. And the most popular website for doing this fundraising from the crowd is Kickstarter. And so we give the students a data set that includes the 90,000 crowdfunded projects from Kickstarter through the years 2011 to 2015. And so this is a big data set. It is beautiful in its complexity and its size, and there's just some natural questions that arise that require mathematical analysis to answer. So I list a few of them here on the slide, but let's look at kind of a natural question, which is, did projects that had a higher fundraising goal raise more money? So one thing you need to know about Kickstarter is that the person who's trying to raise the money will set a fundraising goal, and then they get people to pledge money towards the goal. And if they don't meet the goal, then no money is collected. So if you pledge on a project and the fundraiser doesn't meet their goal, then no money is collected. You don't have to pay. If you go over the goal, then you collect all the money. So this question of did projects that have a higher goal raise more money is a natural question to ask. So should you shoot for the stars and ask for $50,000 because that's going to increase the chance that you don't make your goal. But if you do, you might raise more money. So that's a natural question that arises. It's very easy for the students to relate to this. Some of them have run Kickstarter campaigns. Some of them have contributed to them. And so underlying it are some mathematical concepts which they might not recognize at first as being part of this. And in particular, it's useful to model this meeting or not meeting the goal as a binary indicator variable. So we could say 0, you didn't meet the goal, and 1, you did. So that's easy enough. That logic is easy enough to understand. But then we want the students to be able to work with that. So for example, to interpret what is the average of that indicator variable, or what is the product? What do you get when you multiply that indicator variable by something, or when you multiply the indicator variable by a dollar quantity and then take the average after that. So we want them to be fluent in putting together all of these pieces. All right, and just in case you were wondering, here's the answer to that question. So this is based on the real data set, and we do find in general that if you ask for more money, so the horizontal axis is the goal, there's sort of an overarching trend that you will raise more money, but because this is real data with all of its beautiful complexity, it's not, the trend is not strictly increasing. So we have some ups and downs in there. All right, Boo, do you want to add something?
Yes, one of the great things about this, and this graph illustrates it well, is what we're really doing is providing these students with authentic learning experiences in a structured environment that really helps prepare them for what they can expect in the business world. And so they're able to start at the very beginning of, okay, what type of goal would I do? What has happened in the past? How does this inform my decisions in the future? Should I spend a lot of money up front for this custom product based on what I anticipate my income to be from this product or proposal? And so it really just situates this learning in a way that students really understand and are able to buy into it and see its relevance to their future careers.
Great. So I'm also going to come back to this idea that there are these 3 completely integrated competencies that students need in working on these problems, on these real data-driven problems. And Boo's going to give her perspective on those, and then there's a little question here that she's going to pose to our listeners.
So I'll reiterate. The first one we're looking at is recognizing which mathematical operations to use in a business context. When are they relevant? When would we use them? How would we use them? And then applying the math skills themselves, actually computing these things. And then the third one is being able to use Excel to do this. And so students are faced with all of these in the course. And so Laura and I were having this discussion yesterday on which one do you think is actually hardest for students? And so I want to take a moment here and ask each of you there to think about this for a moment and then type which number you believe is most difficult. So if you can find the chat window, post 1, 2, or 3 to indicate your response. Wonderful.
Can everyone see? This is Laura just asking, does everyone see the answers to the chats, or do just you and I see it? Everyone sees it. Okay, so everyone can see that we got a variety of answers.
And it's funny because that's what was happening with Laura and I as well yesterday when we were talking about it. We were discussing how this changes. And my personal view is it depends. You've got different students at different places coming into this. One I know that students often will think is the most challenging part is number 3, especially starting the class. Tends to be the first most intimidating part of this, but it does seem to transition to some of the other 2. Laura, you want to share your thoughts?
Right. So I was I was actually more in the 1 camp. So because this course has such a different structure and it being application driven instead of method driven, I think that it's hard for students and just all people really to adapt their thinking to exercise this new muscle or this new skill around noticing how to get started and what math are we even talking about here. Because in their previous math education, a lot of times they've been told what math to use to get started, and then the word problems only come at the end of the chapter. And so you sometimes have a little hint about what the tool is that you need to use. And Boo, I agree with Boo though that using Excel is the most tangible and visible hurdle for the students because there's so much that's new about it. So I think that more students would think that 3 is the hardest one, but I think that 1 is the hardest one. And I see my former student has agreed with me. Hi, Tyler.
So one thing that's great is, regardless of really where this ends up or what happens in actuality, is we support them in all of these endeavors. So in the classroom, the way we've structured it, we've built it so that we are able, if students feel they're more challenged in 1, 2, or 3, wherever they're at currently, we're there helping them, walking around, trying to meet them where they are at in their understanding.
All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about the history of the course and how it came to be. So again, I'll let Boo take the lead on this, and Dee Dee, be prepared to chime in.
So yes, so Dee Dee and Laura were the first to develop this, as Laura had mentioned earlier. We piloted it with 100 students in fall 2014. And then Dee Dee was originally coordinating this. Dee Dee, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. When we first put this course into action, we had a very select group of students. They were, it was a small, very controlled group, and we just started working through finding out what worked for the students, what didn't work for the students, throwing them into active learning immediately, and trying to figure out the best way to communicate our expectations to change their expectations of what they were going to get out of a math course. And through a few semesters and working with a couple of other instructors, I think we started to hone in on kind of this best sales pitch, if you will, for the methods and the techniques, and also how to help them navigate their frustrations and the challenges that come with working with, say, Excel as their tool of technological tool when they weren't necessarily ready for it. And just to pipe back to the previous slide, I think 1 and 3 almost come together. Once you throw Excel into the mix, it becomes difficult for students as well to distinguish where the math idea is and where the Excel is, because when they approach a question, this was from the very beginning, they think, what do I need to type into Excel to answer this? When in fact, the first question they should be answering is, what is the right mathematical concept and mathematical tools to use? Then let's figure out how they work in Excel. And so I think in many ways that was one of the primary challenges for the instructors, and continues to be for the instructors, is figuring out how to help the students distinguish and separate those ideas to help their learning of the process. And then I stayed there for another few semesters, and we did start to scale up, not nearly to the scale they are at now, under the lead of Boo, but we have seen quite a number of students go through the program with great success.
So yeah, and so with taking this over as Dee Dee transitioned, the course has begun to grow considerably. And so with that came a lot of challenges. And so where we sit currently is I coordinate 30 plus sections each semester of 28 to 30 students. This includes 10 other instructors besides myself, as well as 10 learning assistants, working between 2 departments, both mathematics and the business school, and also 4 distinct student groups, which are business students, pre-business students, transfer students, and anybody else who's interested. And they all have different goals. And so that scale can be challenging. So with having that many instructors teaching these courses, training is a concern. We have every fall, we get numerous instructors that we need to hire on to be able to teach these. And so you have the added challenge of, just because they know math, do they know Excel? And not all of them do. So there's definitely this transition that comes in, and this learning curve where, you know, I have to get in there, and as a team, we also work together to help get everybody up to speed on how to use Excel, and also how to communicate that with their students. So not just knowing it, but being able to problem solve students' understanding of using this tool. As well as the format is not typical. It's this application driven. We use, you know, it's a very active learning classroom. It's got a similar flip structure where we do have course videos, and we're doing a lot of the work in class as we walk around and offer just-in-time support for students working through the material. And so that can be really challenging for people who are not used to teaching that way. And so trying to work through that, getting them to buy in, as well as how to apply that. So, and also even finding time to meet with this many sections as we run. We have classes starting at 8 a.m. all the way ending at 5 p.m. And so for people teaching morning classes to meet in the evening, they'd be waiting around all day. So that's been a challenge that we have attended to. And so also, in addition to that, it's an atypical format for students. They're coming in wanting to have lecture style or familiar with that in math courses, and now we're not doing that. They have to work during class and be responsible for their learning and struggle a bit with the content. Also, they tend to think of it as an Excel class. They've separated their view of mathematics and seeing this as something distinct, and we have been working on that as well. And of course, with anything this large and using electronic documents, is academic dishonesty is a concern and is a challenge. And so we've been working with that as well. And of course, the learning management system, which we began initially with Desire to Learn, and everything was built in there and running rather smoothly. And then we have recently transitioned over to Canvas, which runs differently. And so we've had to make changes and working really to adjust the structure of the course that will align with how Canvas works while still supporting the overall learning goals. And so some of the things we have done to try to help with this is, adding an instructor virtual community that's also in Canvas to help get instructors up to speed with what this will look like, and they get access to this prior to the semester starting so they can get familiar with the materials and how to navigate the learning management system prior to actually teaching the course. Also with the meetings, I've now incorporated synchronous and asynchronous meetings that we will have with instructors so that it limits the amount of time they have to be on campus at odd hours, while also still giving us this chance to communicate. And in addition, building learning outcomes by module to align with overall course outcomes. And for academic dishonesty, we've taken a lot of steps, some of which are updating the spreadsheets each semester, refreshing the material, both to attend to these concerns, but also to keep it up to date and relevant with what students are interested in. For example, cell phones will be changing because the way they're charged currently has changed over time. And so we will be looking at updating that module soon.
Okay, thanks, Boo. This is Laura again, and Boo talked about a bunch of the challenges we had in the class, or that we have, our ongoing challenges. Most of those, I think we expected to face those sorts of challenges, and we knew there'd be some benefits, but then there have turned out to be a bunch of what I consider unexpected benefits. So I want to talk about those a little bit. So the first is that we use the data from the class to keep our students on track. So let me say a little bit about what I mean by that. So on the previous slide, Boo talked about how the class is highly integrated with our learning management system. So students do homework that is built into the learning management system as little quizzes. Students can attempt the homework multiple times, and because the applications are all data-driven, Dee and I originally, and now Boo, we keep question banks. So one student might get the question, what was the growth rate in the stock from October 1st, 2000 to October 1st, 2005, and another student would get a different set of dates. Or if a student did a second attempt at the homework, they would get a different set of dates. So the class, all of these homeworks and of course the quizzes in class are integrated into the learning management system, and that throws off this huge digital footprint. And so I call myself big sister here on the slide, but like in the sense of big brother, because I'm watching to see how the students are doing. And before the webinar started, I was talking to Vanessa about my first exposure to CCA, the Complete College America, was through their publication, The 4-Year Myth. So it's about how challenging it is for students to get their degrees within 4 years. And I have a page from that taped to the wall in my office, and I have highlighted that one of the remedies is to have math aligned to majors. So that's what we're doing here with Math 11, 12. But I noticed today when I was looking at the sheet, I noticed that another one of them is labeled intrusive academic advising. So I'm glad that I have CCA's vote of support in this intrusive but helpful thing that we do, which is every few weeks in the fall semester, I pull reports from the learning management system on all the students who are taking this class, and I flag to the Leeds academic advisors things that need attention. So if the class, there's attendance measured, there's how many times and how well they did on the homework, and then there's quiz grades. So I flag to the advisors how to use this data to reach out to students to have very specific conversations. So if students are doing really well on their homework and then not doing well on the quiz, then with that pattern, I coach the advisors to ask the students what kind of help they're getting on their homework. And this is not an accusation of academic dishonesty. It's just sometimes people are getting help so that they can get it right, but they don't really understand what's going on. And so the advisors can get this very specific type of coaching. And I've had a lot of nice feedback from our advisors that this is so much more effective because it's so relevant to the students' lives and it's so detailed. It's so much better than them just asking the students, hey, how's it going? And it's timely because they don't have to wait until midterm grades or first semester grades. That could be too late. So this is our own form of intrusive academic advising that we're finding is working really well for our first year students. So that's one of the unexpected benefits. And the second one is around diversity. So in the series of blog posts that I wrote leading up to this webinar, I talked about how we're all pretty familiar with the standard sequence of courses that students take in their high schools. So leading up to and sometimes including calculus, and there is a correspondence between socioeconomic status and underrepresented backgrounds and whether or not the students have had calculus in their high school. So given that this class, this Math 11, 12 at CU, given that it's not just another step in the sequence, it actually creates a more level playing field for the students who have not had the advantage of going to a high school where they were encouraged to take calculus or they were given the opportunity to take calculus. And so that's been a really nice unexpected benefit. We didn't set out to thinking about that, but we noticed that was happening. And Dee Dee has, as we said, she's no longer on campus regularly, but she does come in to work with the Office of Diversity Affairs to run a summer bridge program for students from underrepresented groups. Dee Dee, do you want to say anything about that?
I will just add that very much my experience there does reinforce the notion that we are creating a more level playing field within the population of students. Just seeing students who otherwise have been very apathetic or challenged or feeling as if math was never within their grasp, suddenly feeling empowered and being a leader because having it in this applied setting with the powerful Excel tool allows them to express themselves and do their mathematics and find the solutions to problems and experiment with different methods of problem solving that they haven't previously had. And it also, this past summer, for instance, I had a student who, the second day of the bridge program, this particular student had calculus in high school, came up to me expressing how bored they were. They knew all this mathematics. Could I give them a reference to like some calculus worksheets that maybe they could work on instead of the Excel-based mathematics that we were doing in the bridge? And it took me a couple of days to get back to the student. And when I did, I showed them, some resources for the student, but they seemed to no longer have an interest because they actually did find trying to analyze the data the way we were asking them to, even though they perhaps knew the mathematical concepts, was quite a challenge due to the size of the data set and the fact that we were asking them to do the analysis the way we were within Excel. They had to then, there was something that they had to learn out of this course, and it wasn't just the Excel skills, but it was how do I tweak my knowledge of mathematics so that I can use Excel to answer those questions, because the data set's so large, I don't have a choice otherwise. And so just seeing those types of reactions from the students, and like I said, just that empowerment for those who had previously felt that math was kind of out of their reach, it's a very positive outcome. And I think it's largely due to the type of course that we've created here and the way that we teach it.
Okay, and Boo, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's, just on a day-to-day teaching this course and working with the students, as an educator, it's surprisingly been rewarding. I can't tell you how many times teaching math, I hear, when am I going to ever use this? I've never heard that in this course. Students immediately see how this is applicable and is relevant to what they're doing. And I have had numerous students come up to me during and after the course and just, thank me and for teaching them this, and talk about how this course has changed their lives and their careers, and even how they approach daily problems. Students talk about, and they'll share their budgets or their schedule that they're now building on Excel and using this and different formulas to, manage their time. And it becomes such a part of their lives. And being able to have that sort of opportunity to influence students in a positive way is incredibly rewarding. And it was unexpected teaching this.
Okay, awesome. This is Laura again. So actually, I just thought of one more unexpected benefit, which is students don't have to buy a textbook for this class. So we have a workbook that has each of the applications. It walks them through problems and a little bit of background, and that costs about $25 or $30 at the bookstore for the photocopying, but no big, heavy $250 textbook. So that seems to be in line with the trends toward open courseware that we're seeing because of the added expense being another barrier to helping our students complete college on time. And even they can even avoid the buying the book buying the course pack at the bookstore, because we do provide it in a digital format to them. And as a preview to the last slide in this deck, we are really interested in sharing the materials in this course, and I will share with you a link where we have the version of the materials from the first iteration from 2014. Okay, so a little bit of recap about sort of the origin, the history, the evolution of this class. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but the way this project got started was that I was volunteered, what we call voluntold in my world, voluntold that I was going to be on a curriculum overhaul task force for the business school by our dean in 2012. And I had long had an interest in the intersection of mathematics and applications in business, and that was the piece that I wanted to own and to work with the math department on. I had met Dee Dee previously, and little did I know how we were going to become partners in crime. So so one group that I haven't mentioned is that I needed to sell this idea to all of my fellow faculty members in the business school. We had previously had very standard math requirements, so a finite math class and a business calculus class. And so relinquishing the business calculus requirement was a non-trivial discussion in the business school. But we sold them, I and actually with some help from David Grant, who was the math chair at the time, and had been Dee Dee's dissertation advisor way back in the day. The two of us worked to sell this idea to the business faculty. It was very much aligned with the history of the math department on our campus, which has had a successful set of quantitative reasoning and mathematical skills courses that they offer to non-STEM students. So when Dee Dee told me that she was not going to stick around at CU forever, after I got done crying through a box of tissues, we came up for air, and I was absolutely thrilled that Boo was willing to join in this partnership, because I developed the course and I'm involved on the sidelines, but it's Boo who's on the front line doing all the heavy lifting. There's over 900 students in the course this semester, and she's the course coordinator, so the buck stops with her. So at this point, we have had thousands of students go through the course and become more mathematically mature in a way that is very relevant for business. The quote for me at the bottom, I do think this is the most impactful thing I've done professionally, because it has given this opportunity, this skill, this learning to so many people. Thousands of students have taken it, and it's such a useful way to put their education to use. Okay, so here's the link to the page where I keep a bunch of materials for the class, and actually, if you Google my name, my Leeds faculty page is one of the first few results. I think it's the second result. And then you should be able to navigate to the business math class URL. And then I've also provided our emails. And we would love to answer some questions, and either now in the webinar or follow up after. So Vanessa, I'm going to turn it back over to you to see if anyone has any questions.
Sure. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a question and answer function to submit your questions. And if you'd like, you can also use the chat function, whatever you'd like to use to get your questions out there. We can address them anyway. So we'll just give you a minute, but I want to say thank you so much to our panelists. I love the engaging part of the webinar where we were responding. I think you all did such a great job. And we have somebody that raised a hand. But if you are raising, there you are, Sharon. If you are raising your hand, can you use the question and answer function or the chat box to submit your question, please? Give everybody a minute. Sharon, I don't know if that was an inadvertent hand up or if you have a question. Here we go. Perfect. Thank you. Does this course count as the math requirement for a student's program of study?
So I'll take that. So this is Laura. So not only does it count for the math requirement, it is the math requirement. So students have to take, the business students have to take this course. Now, we do not have any automatic exemptions based on other coursework, which is a change. So back when we had a calculus requirement, if students had an AP score, a good AP score, they could exempt out of the requirement. We don't have that for this class, but we do offer students the opportunity to demonstrate their mastery of the course to exempt, so through an exam. But not that many students have all three of those skills that we talked about. So yes, it does count, and it is the math requirement for the Leeds students. Sharon, does that answer your question?
Yes, that answers Sharon's question. Thank you. And I will wait just one more minute if anybody else has questions. I will take that minute to remind all of you that I will be sending this recording out this afternoon to everyone who registered. And we encourage you to share that with your colleagues. And if you do have questions after that you think of, or if your colleagues have questions, you can reach out to me, or of course, contact Laura, Boo, and Dee Dee directly using the information on this slide. Okay, seeing no questions, I will wrap up by saying Complete College America, thanks you so much for joining us. And we look forward to engaging you on another webinar again soon. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.